Imagine flinging your expensive stiletto at the most dangerous man in the room and drunkenly ordering him to fetch. That's exactly what Nia did. But when he stalks over, pins her against the mahogany bar and growls, "No, you fetch." The hunt is officially on. Welcome to Atlina's Romantasy Collection. If you're ready for sharp tongues and possessive alphas, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a beat. Now, let's see how global our pack is today. Tell me which city or country you are listening from down in the comments. Let's get into the story. Chapter 1. The Commute from Hell. The number 42 bus didn't just smell bad. It smelled like a wet dog had rolled in onions and then died of heat stroke. Nia Salas stood wedged between a man eating a tuna sandwich and a teenager listening to trap music without headphones, her knuckles white as she gripped the overhead rail. "If I don't get out of this zip code soon," Nia muttered to the condensation-fogged window, "I am going to become a supervillain." She checked her watch. 8:15 a.m. She was going to be late. Again. Nia was a crisis management consultant, a fixer. She saved billionaires from their own stupidity, spun PR disasters into gold, and cleaned up corporate messes. Yet, here she was, wearing a suit that cost more than her roommate's car, being jostled on public transport because she was saving every dime for her exit strategy. Her goal wasn't just a new apartment, it was the Audi. An RS7, sleek, black, and capable of doing 0 to 60 fast enough to outrun her depression. But right now, she was stuck in the purgatory of the transit system. The bus lurched to a halt, throwing Nia into the tuna sandwich man. He grunted. She peeled herself off him with a grimace. "Charming," she hissed. By the time she reached her apartment, a fourth-floor walk-up with no elevator and a permanent draft, she was ready to fight God. She unlocked the door, desperate to change before her afternoon meeting with a potential new client, Vesper Logistics. "Tasha!" Nia called out, dropping her briefcase on the wobbly entry table. "Did you pick up the dry cleaning? I need the cream blazer." Silence. Nia walked into the living room. It looked like a bomb had gone off in a Pier 1 Imports. Incense smoke hung heavy in the air, smelling vaguely of burnt hair and patchouli. And there, draped over the back of a kitchen chair, was her cream blazer. It wasn't just draped, it was serving as a napkin for a half-eaten slice of pepperoni pizza. Nia stood very still. The vein in her temple began to throb. She walked to her bedroom, where the only male she tolerated resided. Scales, her fat, judgmental bearded dragon, was basking on his heat rock. He turned one golden eye toward her, his throat pouch puffing out slightly. "She used the Armani silk as a placemat, Scales," Nia whispered, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "A placemat." Scales licked his lips, indifferent to her suffering. Nia sat on the edge of her bed, putting her head in her hands. She was 30 years old. She was brilliant. She was vicious in a boardroom. And she was living with a roommate who thought paying rent was a capitalist construct. "I need this job," she told the lizard. "Vesper Logistics, they're swimming in scandal. If I land this, we move. We get the penthouse. We get the car. And Tasha can use her own clothes to wipe up grease." She stood up, her eyes hard. She grabbed a backup jacket, charcoal gray, severe, authoritative. She wasn't just going to that interview to get a job. She was going to war for her freedom. Chapter 2. The Incident at the Gilded Cage. Nia's bad mood wasn't just about the blazer. It was a hangover from 2 nights ago. Not an alcohol hangover, but an emotional one. A shame-over. She closed her eyes on the subway train, letting the memory of the gilded cage wash over her. It was supposed to be a celebration. She'd won a small settlement for a tech startup. She'd gone to the speakeasy alone, craving a martini and silence. She had gotten the martini. She hadn't gotten the silence. The memory played in 4K resolution in her mind. She had been 3 drinks deep, her feet throbbing in her Louboutins. She'd kicked them off under the bar stool. One had slid too far, skittering across the polished floor like an escaping prisoner. She had looked up and seen him. He was leaning against a pillar, looking like he owned the building and everyone in it. Tall, broad, dark hair that looked like he'd run his hands through it in frustration, and a suit that fit him like a second skin. He was watching her with an intensity that felt like a physical shove. Drunk Nia was not polite Nia. Drunk Nia was a brat. She had pointed a manicured finger at him. "Hey, you! Tall, dark, and broody! Fetch my shoe!" The silence that followed was deafening. The man hadn't blinked. He had pushed off the pillar, moving with a fluid, predatory grace that made the hair on her arms stand up. He didn't pick up the shoe. He walked right past it, stepping into her personal space until his thighs brushed against her knees. He placed a hand on the bar, trapping her. He smelled like expensive bourbon, cedar, and rain. The heat radiating off him was absurd, like standing next to an open oven. He leaned down, his lips inches from her ear. His voice was a low rumble, vibrating in her chest cavity. "You fetch." It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. A heavy, weighted order that seemed to hook into her spine and yank. For a split second, her brain had gone fuzzy, a strange instinct screaming at her to obey. But Nia Salas didn't obey men in bars. She had snapped out of the trance, anger flaring hot and bright. "I'd rather walk home barefoot on broken glass," she had hissed back, her eyes locking with his hazel ones. "Useless service in this place. I'm leaving a 1-star review." She had shoved his chest. It was like shoving a brick wall, grabbed her shoe, and hobbled out, dignity in tatters. Now, sitting on the train, Nia groaned. "Please," she prayed to the universe, "let him be a tourist. Let him be some random hedge fund guy I never have to see again." The universe, as usual, was not listening. Chapter 3. The Fortress of Solitude. The headquarters of Vesper Logistics was less of an office building and more of a fortress disguised as a skyscraper. The glass was tinted so dark it looked like obsidian, and the security guards in the lobby didn't look like rent-a-cops. They looked like mercenaries who had seen active combat. Nia breezed past the front desk, flashing her ID. "Nia Salas, here to see the CEO." The receptionist, a woman with sharp eyes and nervous energy, tapped her keyboard. "Mr. Vesper is expecting you. Top floor. The elevator only has one button." Nia stepped into the elevator. Her reflection in the mirrored walls looked sharp. The charcoal blazer worked. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun that screamed, "Don't waste my time." She checked her lipstick. Red. War paint. The elevator ascended with a stomach-dropping speed. When the door slid open, she wasn't greeted by a reception area. She stepped directly into a massive, open-plan office that spanned the entire floor. The decor was aggressive. Dark wood, leather, steel. No plants. No motivational posters. Just efficient, brutal luxury. A man was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, his back to her. He was on the phone, his voice low and clipped. "I don't care if the cargo is restless. Sedate them if you have to. If one crate opens before it hits the warehouse, heads will roll, literally." He hung up and turned around. Nia's heart stopped, did a backflip, and then crashed into her stomach. It was him, the shoe guy, Dante Vesper. He looked even bigger in the daylight. The sunlight caught the hazel in his eyes, making them look almost gold. He froze when he saw her, his nostrils flaring slightly, as if he was scenting the air. A slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a cat that just found a mouse in its food bowl. "Well," Dante said, his voice that same gravelly baritone from the bar. "If it isn't Cinderella, did you manage to find your way home, or did you need someone to fetch you a map?" Nia's grip on her briefcase tightened until her knuckles ached. She had two choices, turn around and run, or brazen it out. She remembered Tasha. She remembered the pizza on her Armani blazer. She remembered the number 42 bus. She chose violence. "Mr. Vesper," she said, her voice cool and steady, "I see your hospitality is as lacking in the boardroom as it is in the bar. Are we doing this, or should I bill you for my travel time now?" Chapter 4. The Shark Tank. Dante Vesper didn't look offended. If anything, he looked delighted. He walked toward his massive desk and sat down, gesturing to the single, uncomfortable-looking chair opposite him. "Sit," he commanded. "I prefer to stand," Nia countered instantly. "It keeps the meeting shorter." Dante leaned back, lacing his fingers behind his head. The movement strained the fabric of his white dress shirt across his chest. Nia tried very hard not to notice. "You're here because my board of directors thinks I have an image problem," Dante said, cutting to the chase. "They say Vesper Logistics comes off as intimidating, secretive, dangerous." "They're right," Nia said, dropping her briefcase onto his desk with a heavy thud. She pulled out a tablet. "I ran a sentiment analysis on your brand this morning. Do you know what the top 3 associated words are for your company?" Dante raised an eyebrow. "Enlighten me." "Cult, mafia, and werewolves," Nia read off the screen. Dante flinched. It was microscopic, a slight tightening of his jaw, but Nia caught it. "Werewolves?" he repeated, his voice carefully neutral. "That's creative." "It's because of the howling reported near your shipping yards," Nia said, scrolling through charts. "And the fact that your security team looks like they eat raw meat. And you," she gestured to his office, "this place looks like a vampire's panic room. You need sunlight. You need color. You need to stop looking like you're plotting world domination and start looking like a logistics company that delivers toaster ovens." Dante stood up slowly. He walked around the desk, encroaching on her space. Nia held her ground, though every instinct she had was screaming predator. He stopped a foot away from her. The heat radiating from him was distracting. "You have a sharp tongue, Ms. Solace," he murmured, looking down at her. "Most people who walk into this office can barely stammer out a sentence. You insult my decor and my staff in under 5 minutes." "I'm not paid to be your friend, Dante," she said, dropping the Mr. Vesper. "I'm paid to fix your mess, and you are a mess, a very expensive, well-dressed mess." "And what is your price?" he asked softly. "To fix me?" "Triple my standard retainer," Nia said, not blinking. "Plus a relocation package. I want the corporate penthouse on 5th Avenue, the one that's currently sitting empty because your last VP of operations went missing." Dante's eyes narrowed. "You did your homework." "I always do. Triple rate, the penthouse, and a company car, an Audi RS7, black." Dante let out a short, bark-like laugh. "You don't ask for much, do you?" "I'm worth it. Or you can keep being known as the CEO of the Wolf Cult. Your choice." Chapter 5. Signed in Blood, Almost. The air in the room seemed to compress, pressurized by his stare. Nia could hear the hum of the air conditioning and the frantic thumping of her own heart. She had just demanded a package worth $500,000 from a man who looked like he could snap her neck with one hand. Dante stepped closer. He reached out, and for a terrifying second, Nia thought he was going to grab her throat. Instead, his large, warm hand brushed a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on the sensitive skin of her neck, his touch rough but surprisingly gentle. Nia stopped breathing. "You're hired," he said, his voice rough. He pulled his hand back as if he'd been burned. He walked back to his desk and pressed a button on his intercom. "Gila, bring in the standard NDA and the executive consultant contract. Edit the salary line. Triple it." He looked back at Nia. "But there are conditions." Nia crossed her arms. "I'm listening." "The penthouse is yours. The car, we'll see. But if I pay you this much, you are mine. Professionally." Nia bristled at the possessive phrasing. "Meaning?" "Meaning this isn't a 9-to-5 job. Problems happen at night, especially with my company. If I call you at 2 a.m., you answer. If I need you on a dock at midnight, you show up. You don't ask questions about how I run my security, you just explain it to the press. Are we clear?" "Clear," Nia said. "I'm a fixer, Dante. I don't care where the bodies are buried, as long as I'm not the one holding the shovel." Dante's eyes gleamed gold again. "Careful, Nia. You might find that digging is part of the job description." The door slid open, and a petite woman scurried in. This was Gila, Dante's assistant. She looked terrified. She placed the papers on the desk, avoided making eye contact with Dante, and practically ran out of the room. Nia picked up the pen. The contract was thick. The NDA was aggressive. But all she could see was the salary figure and the address of the penthouse. She signed her name with a flourish. Welcome to the pack, Dante said, a strange weight to the word. He tossed a key card onto the desk. It was heavy, black metal. Your apartment key. Move in tonight. We have work to do tomorrow. Nia grabbed the key. It felt cold in her hand. Pleasure doing business with you, boss. She turned and walked to the elevator, feeling his gaze burning a hole between her shoulder blades. As the doors closed, cutting off her view of him, Nia slumped against the wall. Her legs finally gave out, shaking uncontrollably. She had the job. She had the apartment. But as the elevator plummeted down, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just sold her soul to something much older and much hungrier than a corporate CEO. Chapter 6. The Great Escape. Nia returned to the fourth-floor walk-up with the Vesper keycard burning a hole in her pocket. The sun was setting, casting long, depressing shadows across the cracked pavement of her street. She climbed the stairs, her legs aching, but for the first time in years, the fatigue felt temporary. It felt like the last lap of a marathon. She unlocked the door and was immediately hit by a wall of sound. Tasha was hosting what she called a sound bath healing session, which apparently involved 3 strangers lying on Nia's living room rug, humming off-key while Tasha banged on a Tibetan singing bowl. Tasha, Nia said, her voice cutting through the vibration. Pack it up. Session's over. Tasha looked up, her eyes glazed. Nia, you're blocking the energy flow. We're cleansing the apartment's aura. The only thing you're cleansing is my patience, Nia snapped. She stepped over a man in tie-dye pants and marched to her bedroom. She grabbed 2 suitcases. She didn't have much, just her suits, her laptop, and her dignity. She began throwing clothes into the bag with ruthless efficiency. Tasha appeared in the doorway, holding the singing bowl like a weapon. What are you doing? Is this about the blazer? I told you, I'll pay for the dry cleaning when my herbal tea business takes off. It's not about the blazer, Tasha. It's about the fact that I'm 30 years old and I'm tired of living in a dorm room. Nia zipped the first bag shut. I got a new job. I'm moving. Tonight. Tasha's eyes widened. Tonight? But rent is due in 3 days. You can't just leave me with the full amount. I'm an artist, Nia. I can't fund this space alone. Nia stopped. She looked at her roommate, at the entitlement etched into her features. She pulled her checkbook out of her purse. She wrote a check for her half of the rent, plus an extra $50. She ripped it out and slapped it onto the dresser. Here, that covers my half and the dry cleaning. Don't call me. She walked over to the terrarium. Scales was asleep, looking like a grumpy, spiked rock. Nia carefully lifted him, placing him into his travel carrier. He opened one eye, gave a tiny hiss of annoyance, and went back to sleep. Come on, buddy, Nia whispered. We're upgrading. She dragged her bags to the door, ignoring Tasha's protests about abandonment trauma. As she stepped out onto the landing, breathing in the smell of stale cooking oil and freedom, she realized she wasn't just leaving an apartment. She was leaving behind the version of herself that accepted less than she was worth. Chapter 7. The Glass Castle. The Vesper corporate penthouse was not an apartment. It was a statement. Located on the 40th floor of a building that pierced the skyline, it was all glass, steel, and polished concrete. It was cold, sterile, and absolutely magnificent. Nia let herself in with the black metal keycard. The lights flickered on automatically, sensing her presence. The living room was larger than her entire previous apartment. The view of the city was panoramic, a sea of glittering lights that made the chaos below look beautiful and distant. Okay, Nia breathed, setting Scales' carrier on a marble island in the kitchen. This is excessive. She wandered through the rooms. The furniture was Italian leather. The kitchen appliances looked like they required a PhD to operate. There was a wine fridge stocked with bottles that cost more than her student loan payments. But there was no warmth, no photos, no knickknacks. It felt like a hotel room for a ghost. Nia set up Scales' tank in the living room, near a floor-to-ceiling window. As soon as she turned on his heat lamp, the bearded dragon perked up, looking out at the city lights. He bobbed his head frantically, likely trying to intimidate a blinking radio tower in the distance. Yeah, tell him who's boss, Scales, Nia muttered, collapsing onto the massive gray sofa. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, she answered. Solace. You settled in? The voice was unmistakable, low, gravelly, and vibrating with that strange, intrusive intimacy. Dante. Nia sat up straighter, even though he couldn't see her. I am. It's very gray. Did you design this, or did you just tell the architect, make it look like a Bond villain lives here? There was a pause, and she could hear the faint sound of wind in the background. I like gray. It's efficient. It's depressing, Nia countered. I'm buying a rug, a red one, just to spite you. Do whatever you want, Nia, as long as you're at your desk at 7 a.m. sharp. We have a briefing. 7 a.m.? That's inhumane. That's the job. Sleep well, fixer. The line clicked dead. Nia stared at the phone. She felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. She was safe, she was rich, and she was housed. But as she looked out at the city, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was a canary that had just voluntarily flown into a very expensive cage. Chapter 8. The Meat Locker. Nia arrived at Vesper Logistics at 6:55 a.m., fueled by espresso and spite. She was wearing her backup charcoal suit, looking sharp enough to cut glass. The office was already buzzing. It wasn't the sleepy shuffle of a normal corporate morning, it was a high-tension hum. People moved fast. They spoke in hushed tones. She approached her new desk, which was situated right outside Dante's glass office. It was less of a desk and more of a command center. A shadow fell over her. She looked up and kept looking up. Standing in front of her was a man who made Dante look reasonable. He was easily 6'6", with a buzz cut and a scar running through his left eyebrow. He was wearing a security uniform that was straining at the seams. This was Kel, the head of security. You the fixer? Kel grunted. He didn't shake her hand. Instead, he leaned in and sniffed the air around her. Visibly sniffed her. Nia didn't recoil. She simply raised an eyebrow. I use vanilla body wash, in case you're trying to identify the top notes. Can I help you, or are you just here to invade my personal space? Kel pulled back, looking surprised. A slow grin spread across his face. Boss said you had teeth. He wasn't lying. I have teeth and a very expensive hourly rate, Nia said, booting up her computer. You must be Kel, the one who scares the interns. I don't scare 'em. I just ensure loyalty, Kel said, crossing his massive arms. You got a badge? I have a face. That should be enough. Kel laughed, a deep, booming sound. Right. Listen, Solace. We do things different here. Don't go wandering into the warehouse basement. Don't ask about the shipping manifests for the special cargo. And if Mr. Vesper's door is closed and the blinds are down, you don't knock, even if the building is burning. Why? Nia asked, typing in her password. Does he nap? Kel's expression darkened slightly. Something like that. Just follow the rules and you won't get bit. He walked away, his heavy boots thudding against the floor. Nia watched him go. The office culture here wasn't just intense, it was predatory. The staff didn't walk, they stalked. And they all seemed to treat Dante not just as a CEO, but as something akin to a god or a warlord. She opened the PR files. The whistleblower folder was empty. Okay, she whispered, cracking her knuckles. Let's find out who's leaking. Chapter 9. The Carnivore. By 1 p.m., Nia had categorized 3 potential leaks and fired an external marketing firm that had been overcharging Vesper for synergy consultations. She was starving. The glass door to Dante's office slid open. Lunch, Dante said. He was putting on his jacket. Nia didn't look up from her screen. I brought a salad. Dante walked over and closed her laptop. That wasn't a question. We're going out. You need to understand who you're working for, and we can't do that here. 10 minutes later, they were seated in a booth at the Iron and Ember, a steakhouse that looked like a gentleman's club from the 1920s. It was dark, quiet, and smelled of charred meat. The waiter approached. He didn't hand them menus. He looked at Dante with palpable nervousness. The usual, Alpha? Mr. Vesper? Yes, the porterhouse, blue. Blue? Nia asked as the waiter scurried away. Why don't you just bite the cow while it's still in the field? Dante poured himself sparkling water. I like the taste of vitality. Cooking ruins the integrity of the protein. You sound like a serial killer on a health kick, Nia quipped, ordering a cooked-through filet mignon and a glass of red wine. When the food arrived, Nia watched with morbid fascination. Dante's steak was massive, seared for maybe 10 seconds on each side. When he cut into it, it was bloody. He ate with a focus that was unsettling. He didn't just chew, he tore. Nia took a sip of wine, trying to ignore the way his jaw muscles moved. So, tell me about the warehouse basement. Kel told me it's off-limits. Dante stopped chewing. He wiped his mouth with a linen napkin, the motion elegant despite the savagery of his meal. Kel talks too much. It's off-limits for safety. Heavy machinery. I've worked in oil refineries, Dante. I know what machinery looks like. Why are there soundproofed walls in a storage facility? Dante leaned forward. The candlelight reflected in his eyes, making them flare gold for a fraction of a second. Nia, there are things in this city, things in my company, that operate on a different set of rules. You are here to handle the public face. Don't go looking at the private one. Curiosity is a dangerous trait in a prey animal. Nia slammed her wine glass down. I am not prey, and if you threaten me again, I'm doubling my fee. Dante stared at her. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was genuine this time. You really aren't prey, are you? He murmured, sounding almost impressed. Eat your steak, Nia. You're going to need the iron. Chapter 10. The Leak. The crisis hit at 4 p.m. A localized blog, The City Watch, posted a blurry photo of a Vesper truck being loaded at midnight. The caption read, Illegal exotic animal trade? Screams heard from Vesper docks. It wasn't viral yet, but it would be by morning. Nia stormed into Dante's office without knocking. We have a problem. Dante was standing by the window, looking tense. I saw it. I'll send Kel to handle the blogger. No! Nia stepped in front of him, blocking his path. You will not send your goon squad to intimidate a journalist. That confirms the story. It turns a rumor into a conspiracy. Then what do you suggest? Dante growled. The sound was deep, vibrating in his chest like a low idling engine. He was angry, and the air in the room grew hot. We invite him in, Nia said calmly. Dante looked at her like she was insane. What? We invite the blogger for an exclusive tour. Tomorrow morning, daylight, we show him the exotic cargo. Except tonight, we fill that truck with something boring. High-end art, sculptures. We claim the screams were from a jagged piece of metal scraping against the container during loading. Dante paused. He ran a hand through his messy hair. Deception! Misdirection, Nia corrected. We bore him to death. He comes looking for a scandal, he finds a shipment of marble statues for a museum. He writes a retraction, and we look transparent. Dante looked at her. The anger in his posture faded, replaced by calculation. He stepped closer, crowding her against the desk. You're good, he whispered. I'm the best, Nia said, her voice steady despite the fact that his heat was radiating through her suit. Now call Kel off, and get me some marble statues. Dante pulled out his phone, his eyes never leaving hers. Consider it done. As Nia walked back to her desk to draft the press invite, she felt a strange thrill. She had just commanded the CEO, and he had listened. But deep down, a little voice, maybe her intuition, maybe fear, whispered that she was getting too good at covering up for monsters she hadn't even met yet. Chapter 11. The Art of the Lie. The morning sun beat down on the Vesper Logistics loading dock, baking the asphalt. Nia adjusted her sunglasses, checking her reflection in the side mirror of a forklift. She looked calm, professional, and completely in control. Inside, she was praying the rental company hadn't screwed up the delivery. This is a bad idea, Dante rumbled from behind her. Nia turned. Dante was wearing a hard hat that looked comically small on his head, and his custom suit was straining across the shoulders as he crossed his arms. He looked like a billionaire playing construction worker for a photo op. It's a brilliant idea, Nia corrected, checking her clipboard. Felix from the City Watch is exactly the kind of journalist who thinks he's uncovering Watergate when he's really just harassing truck drivers. We give him a show, he writes a fluff piece, and we go back to work. A beat-up sedan rolled into the lot. Felix, a man with messy hair, a stained polo shirt, and a phone already recording, stepped out. He looked hungry for a scandal. "Mr. Vesper!" Felix shouted, jogging over. "Is it true you're smuggling endangered species? We have reports of howling, screaming, claws on metal." Dante took a step forward, a low, menacing sound vibrating in his throat. Nia stepped smoothly in front of him, blocking his path. She extended a manicured hand. "Felix, so glad you could make it. I'm Nia Solis, Vesper's new VP of Communications. We saw your post. Very creative writing. But I'm afraid the truth is much more Renaissance." She signaled to Kel. The massive head of security pressed a button on the loading bay door. It rolled up with a grinding screech, a sound exactly like a scream. Felix flinched. "That sound?" "Rusty tracks," Nia said smoothly. "We've scheduled maintenance for Tuesday, but here is your wild animal." Inside the container, secured with heavy straps, were 12 massive marble statues. They were replicas of classical Greek figures, naked, imposing, and very heavy. Nia had rented them from a theater supply company at 4 a.m. for an exorbitant fee. "We're shipping these to a private collector in Dubai," Nia lied without blinking. "When the marble shifts against the metal container walls during loading, it makes a terrible noise, like a banshee, or, as you put it, a wild animal." To prove her point, she nodded at a forklift driver. He nudged one of the statues. The stone base scraped against the metal floor. "Screech!" It sounded exactly like a dying wolf. Felix lowered his phone, looking disappointed. "Oh, it's statues?" "Expensive, heavy, loud statues," Nia confirmed, steering him away from the deeper shadows of the warehouse where the real cargo was hidden. "Now, how about an exclusive quote about Vesper's commitment to the arts?" Behind her, she heard Dante let out a breath that sounded like a tire deflating. He was safe. The pack was safe. And for the first time, he looked at Nia not just as an employee, but as a shield he didn't know he needed. Chapter 12. The Meat Budget. The art shipment gambit worked perfectly. By noon, Felix had posted a retraction titled Vesper Logistics, a heavy lift for the arts, and the internet mob had moved on to canceling a celebrity chef. Nia should have been celebrating. Instead, she was deep in the company ledgers, frowning at her computer screen. The deception had been easy. The numbers, however, were refusing to make sense. "Gila," Nia called out as the assistant scurried past her desk. "Do you have a minute?" Gila froze like a deer in headlights. She clutched a stack of files to her chest. I have to get these to Kel. He needs the inventory." "It can wait," Nia said, spinning her chair around. "I'm looking at the catering budget for the last quarter. Why are we spending $40,000 a month on a butcher in the meatpacking district? And why is the order listed as raw/bone-in only?" Gila's face went pale. "Oh, that's for the dogs." Nia raised an eyebrow. "The dogs? We have a security dog team?" "Yes," Gila squeaked, her eyes darting toward Dante's empty office. "Security dogs, very specific breeds. Mr. Vesper handles their diet personally. I really can't discuss security protocols, Nia. Please don't ask me." Nia stared at her. "Gila, 40 grand buys enough steak to feed a small army, not a K-9 unit. Unless we're raising dire wolves in the basement." Gila didn't laugh. She went completely pale, clutched her files so hard the paper crinkled, and whispered, "I have to go." She practically ran toward the elevators. Nia watched her go, tapping her pen against the desk. Big dogs, genetic quirks, Dante's rare steak, the howling. She wasn't stupid. She knew rich men had eccentric hobbies. Some collected cars, others collected illegal pets. Was Dante running a tiger sanctuary? A dogfighting ring? The thought made her stomach turn. She tolerated arrogance. She tolerated Bond villain decor. She did not tolerate animal cruelty. She waited until 7 p.m. The office thinned out. Dante had left for a private meeting, which Nia assumed meant another raw steak dinner. She stood up and walked toward the records room. If Gila wouldn't tell her what was going on, the paper trail would. But as she passed the ventilation shaft in the hallway, she heard it again. Not a mechanical screech this time. A low, rhythmic, thrumming sound, like a giant cat purring, but deeper. It was coming from the executive suite, Dante's suite, and Dante was supposed to be gone. Chapter 13. The Nest. Nia told herself to go home. The penthouse was waiting. Scales needed fresh kale. There was a bottle of Pinot Noir with her name on it. But Nia Solis hadn't become the city's best fixer by walking away from a puzzle. She swiped her keycard at the entrance to the executive wing. The light turned green. Strange, she thought. Dante usually locks this down like Fort Knox after hours. The hallway was dark, illuminated only by the city lights filtering through the glass walls. The air conditioning was cranking at full blast. It had to be 60 degrees in here. Nia wrapped her blazer tighter around herself. "Dante?" she called out softly. Silence. Just that low, rhythmic thrumming sound. It was coming from Dante's personal office. She pushed the door open. The office was a mess. Usually pristine, it looked like a tornado had touched down. Papers were scattered. A chair was overturned. But what caught her eye was the corner behind the desk. There was a pile of fabric there. A mound of it. Nia stepped closer, her heart hammering against her ribs. She squinted. It wasn't just random fabric. It was clothes. She recognized a gray hoodie Dante had worn last week. A suit jacket. And mixed in with his things. "Is that my scarf?" Nia whispered. It was. Her dark blue cashmere scarf, the one she thought she'd lost at the bar the night they met. It was tangled in the pile, and right next to it was the charcoal blazer she had worn during the interview. The pile wasn't laundry, it was arranged. Circular, deliberate. It was a nest. Nia felt a cold prickle of fear. This wasn't eccentric billionaire. This was obsessive stalker. "Okay," she breathed, backing away. "This is it. I'm resigning. I'm taking the lizard, I'm taking the triple pay, and I'm moving to Canada." She turned to leave, but the door blocked her path. Not the door. Dante. He was standing in the doorway, but he looked wrecked. His shirt was unbuttoned halfway, his skin slick with sweat despite the freezing room. His hair was wild. He was panting, his chest heaving like he'd just run a marathon, and he was staring at the nest, and at Nia standing next to it, with a look of pure, terrified possessiveness. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped. His voice sounded wrong, distorted, too deep. "And you shouldn't be stealing my dry cleaning," Nia yelled, her fear turning into defensive anger. "What is this, Dante? A shrine? Are you sniffing my clothes? That is HR violations 1 through 10. Chapter 14. The Beast in Boardroom B. Dante didn't answer her accusation. He stumbled forward, clutching the edge of the desk. The heat coming off him hit Nia like a physical wave. He was burning up. "Nia, leave, now." It was a command, but his voice cracked. He fell to his knees, groaning, a sound that tore from his throat and ended in a snarl. Nia's anger evaporated, replaced by the fixer instinct. "You're sick," she said, stepping toward him. "Is it a seizure? A fever? I'm calling 911. "No!" Dante roared. He scrambled back, putting the desk between them. His movements were jerky, uncoordinated. "No doctors, no police, just go." "I'm not leaving you like this," Nia said firmly. She reached for her phone. "I'm calling Kel." "Kel is busy," Dante gasped. He gripped the edge of the desk so hard the wood splintered. Splintered. Thick oak, snapping like a twig under his fingers. Nia froze. She looked at the wood. She looked at his hand. His knuckles were white, but the veins in his arms were bulging, dark and thick. "Dante," she said slowly, her voice trembling. "How did you do that?" He looked up. His eyes were gone. There was no Hazel left. They were two glowing orbs of molten gold, shining in the dark office like spotlights. Nia dropped her phone. "Drugs," she whispered, her rational brain scrambling for an explanation. "You're on something. PCP, bath salts. Oh my God, my boss is a junkie." "It's not drugs," Dante ground out through clenched teeth. He was fighting his own body, his muscles rippling as if something was trying to break out from under his skin. "It's the moon. It's full." Nia stared at him. "The moon? You're blaming astronomy?" "Dante, I don't care if Mercury is in retrograde. You just crushed a desk with your bare hands." He let out a howl, a real one, loud and long, that shattered the window's vibration. Nia covered her ears. This wasn't a game. This wasn't a stalker shrine. Dante lunged for the side door that led to Boardroom B, the soundproof room. He threw himself inside and slammed the door. "Lock it!" he screamed from the other side. "Lock me in, Nia!" Nia stood there shaking. The lock was a heavy deadbolt on the outside. She didn't run. She walked over and slammed the bolt home. From the other side, something massive threw itself against the door. The metal hinges groaned. Thud. Growl. Scratch. Nia backed away until she hit the wall. She slid down it, pulling her knees to her chest. "Okay," she whispered to the empty office. "Plan B. We definitely need a Plan B." Chapter 15. The Reveal. Nia sat outside Boardroom B for 10 minutes, listening to the destruction inside. It sounded like a bear was fighting a lawnmower. Then, silence. Nia stood up. Logic told her to run. Survival instinct told her to leave the building and never come back. But Nia Solis needed to know. She needed the variable to solve the equation. She walked to the door. "Dante?" she whispered. "Go away, Nia." His voice was human again, but wrecked, hoarse. "I'm not going away until you tell me what's happening," she said, leaning her forehead against the cool wood. "I saw your eyes. I saw the desk. If you don't tell me, I'm calling the police and telling them you're having a psychotic break. They'll bring SWAT." A long pause. Then the sound of a heavy sigh. "Unlock the door." Nia hesitated. Then she slid the bolt back. She opened the door an inch. Dante was sitting on the floor in the far corner, wrapped in a blanket he must have kept in there. He looked exhausted, bruised, but human. "You want the truth?" he asked quietly. He didn't look at her. He looked ashamed. He looked like a man expecting to be rejected. "You're going to run. Everyone runs." "Try me," Nia said, stepping inside but keeping the door open with her foot. "I've handled embezzlers, cheaters, and politicians. I have a high tolerance for shock." Dante looked up. The gold was fading from his eyes, settling back into hazel. He looked at her with a mix of longing and fear. He hesitated, his hand hovering over his chest. He clearly didn't want to do this. He wanted to lie. He wanted to tell her it was a medical condition. "Dante," Nia said, her voice soft but firm. "Don't lie to me. I can sell anything, but I can't sell a lie I don't know." Dante closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. "Watch my hand," he whispered. He held his right hand out. Nia watched, unblinking. Dante focused. He let the control slip, just a fraction. With a sickening crack-pop sound, his fingers elongated. His skin darkened, coarse dark fur erupting instantly. His fingernails turned into 2-inch, razor-sharp black claws. The hand wasn't human anymore. It was a paw. A lethal, massive wolf paw. Nia stopped breathing. Dante held it there for 3 seconds, enough to prove it wasn't a trick, then forced it back. The bones snapped back into place. The fur receded. The claws vanished. He looked at her, bracing himself for the scream. For the running. Nia stared at his hand, then at his face. She blinked. "Okay," she said, her voice dangerously calm. "So, no dental plan then?" Dante stared at her, stunned. "What?" "You're a werewolf," Nia said, pointing at him. "That's a logistical nightmare. Do you have fleas? Do we need to update the insurance policy for acts of dog? And the meat budget. Oh my God, the meat budget makes sense now. She started pacing, muttering to herself. I'm going to need a new NDA, a stronger one. And we need to soundproof this room better because Felix almost heard you earlier. And the clothes, the nest. You were scent marking me? Dante looked utterly baffled. He had expected terror. He got a project manager. Nia, he said, standing up shakily. I'm a monster. I turn into a wolf. You're a PR crisis, Dante, she corrected, stopping to look at him. But I'm the fixer, and I just secured a triple salary, so put some pants on. We have work to do. She turned around to hide the fact that her hands were shaking violently. She accepted the logic, but the fear was there, buried deep. She was locked in a room with a wolf, and she had just decided to pet it. Chapter 16. The Morning After. The sun was blindingly bright when Nia walked into the executive suite the next morning. She was wearing her armor, the charcoal suit, and carrying 2 extra-large coffees. She stopped at the threshold of Dante's office. The damage was worse in the daylight. The solid oak desk was split down the middle, splintered like a toothpick. Papers were strewn everywhere. The leather chair was shredded, and standing in the middle of the debris was Dante Vesper. He looked like a man waiting for a firing squad. He had tried to clean up, piling the wood into a corner, but it was hopeless. When he saw Nia, he flinched. Not a lot, just a tightening of his shoulders. He was wearing a fresh suit, but he looked tired. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a wary shame. You came back, he said. His voice was rough. I have a contract, Dante, Nia said, stepping over a pile of sawdust. And unless accidental demolition voids my tenure, I'm still on the payroll. She set a coffee on the only flat surface remaining, a filing cabinet. Black, no sugar. I assumed you'd need it. Dante stared at the cup, then at her. Nia, about last night, I lost control. That doesn't happen often. The moon was close, and the stress of the leak. Stop, Nia said, holding up a hand. We are not doing the, it's not you, it's the moon speech. I saw the paw, I saw the eyes. I have processed the data. She walked over to the corner where the nest was. Her blue cashmere scarf was still there, tangled with his gray hoodie. Nia reached down. Dante made a low, involuntary noise in his throat, a rumble of protest. Nia ignored it. She unspooled the scarf, shook it out, and draped it around her neck. Then she pointed at her charcoal blazer, which was buried deeper in the pile. You can keep the blazer, she said matter-of-factly. The shoulder pads were too stiff anyway, but I'm taking the scarf back. Dante looked at her, stunned. You're letting me keep it? I'm prioritizing, Nia said, taking a sip of her coffee. If hoarding my knitwear keeps you from eating the board of directors, then it's a valid business expense. Now, call maintenance. Tell them you dropped a safe. A very heavy safe. We need a new desk before the noon briefing. Dante finally moved. He took the coffee, his hand brushing hers. The static shock was there, stronger than before, but this time, Nia didn't pull away. You are insane, he murmured, staring at her with an intensity that made her knees weak. Any other human would be halfway to the airport. I told you, Nia said, meeting his hazel eyes, which she now knew hid gold underneath. I want the Audi. Now drink your coffee, Dante. We have a PR crisis to manage. Chapter 17. The Spreadsheet of Doom. By 10 a.m., Nia had set up a temporary command center in the conference room. She wasn't looking at press releases. She was building a spreadsheet. The title of the document was Project Lupine Logistics. She hit the intercom button. Kel? Conference room, now. 2 minutes later, the massive head of security lumbered in. He stopped when he saw the projector screen. Column A, triggers. Column B, dietary needs. Column C, silver toxicity levels. Kel blinked. Then he laughed, a deep, booming sound that shook the glass walls. You're making a spreadsheet? For lycanthropy? I organize chaos, Kel, Nia said, typing furiously. And right now, your boss is a chaotic variable. Sit down. I have questions. Kel sat, looking amused. Shoot. Silver, Nia said. Does it burn? Does it kill? Or is it just a fashion faux pas? Burns on contact, Kel said, leaning back. If it enters the bloodstream, it's fatal. No silver letter openers. No silver jewelry. We use stainless steel or platinum. Nia typed, no silver, platinum only. Expensive taste confirmed. Chocolate, Nia asked. Lethal to dogs. Lethal to you? Nah, gives us a stomachache though. Dante loves dark chocolate, but he regrets it immediately. Nia typed, stock dark chocolate, 70% cocoa, plus antacids. The full moon, Nia continued. Is it a forced shift, or can he control it? Kel's smile faded. The alpha, he fights it. He thinks the wolf makes him a monster, so he resists. That makes it hurt more. If he just let go, ran with the pack, he'd be fine. But he locks himself in the office and breaks furniture. Nia stopped typing. She looked at the cursor blinking on the screen. He thinks he's a monster. That explained the shame, the self-isolation. Dante treated his other half like a disease, not a part of himself. And the nesting? Nia asked quietly. Why my clothes? Kel looked at her, his eyes softening. Because you smell like peace, Solace. To him, you smell like the one thing that quiets the noise in his head. It's not creepy, it's desperate. Nia stared at the screen. She felt a sudden, sharp pang in her chest. She had been treating this like a logic puzzle, but it was an emotional wound. Okay, she said, closing the laptop. Thank you, Kel. Go guard something. As Kel left, Nia added one last note to the bottom of the spreadsheet. Action item. Teach the wolf he doesn't have to hide. Chapter 18. The Council of Elders. The peace didn't last long. At 2 p.m., 3 black SUVs pulled up to the Vesper building. Dante was in his new temporary office, a smaller room down the hall, when Nia walked in. We have visitors, she said. 3 men, very old, very grumpy. They're wearing wool suits in July, which is a crime in itself. Dante went pale. The elders, the pack council. They demanded to see you, and me. Dante stood up instantly. No, you stay here. They are old-fashioned. They don't trust humans. If they smell you on me, if they know you know, they will demand I silence you. Silence me? Nia raised an eyebrow. Like, with a bribe, or a shallow grave? The second one, Dante said grimly. Well, that's going to be a problem for my landlord, Nia said, straightening her blazer. I'm coming with you. Nia, no. Dante, I am your VP of Communications. If I hide, I look guilty. If I walk in there and bore them with quarterly projections, I look like an employee. Let's go. They walked into the main boardroom. 3 elderly men sat at the head of the table. They looked like retired bankers, but the air around them was heavy with the scent of wet earth and aggression. As soon as Nia entered, all 3 heads snapped toward her. One of them, a man with a white beard named Elder Thorne, stood up. He sniffed the air loudly. She knows, Thorne growled. He didn't look at Nia, he looked at Dante. You let a human female into the inner circle? You have violated the first law, Alpha. Dante stepped in front of Nia, a low growl building in his chest. She is essential to the company. She saved us from the press yesterday. She is a loose end, Thorne shouted, slamming his hand on the table. She smells of your fear and your desire. It is disgusting. Eliminate her, or we will remove her for you. Nia stepped out from behind Dante. She didn't cower. She pulled out her tablet. Gentlemen, she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Before you discuss eliminating me, you should know that I have set up a scheduled data release. If I don't log in every 12 hours, a dossier containing the GPS coordinates of your running grounds and the tax records of your shell companies goes to the IRS, the FBI, and TMZ. The room went dead silent. Thorne's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I am not a loose end, Nia continued, walking to the table and pouring herself a glass of water. I am your insurance policy. I am the only reason you aren't currently being raided by the feds for that art shipment stunt with a journalist. So sit down, tuck your claws away, and let's discuss the Q3 earnings. Or I can hit send right now. Dante looked at her. He looked terrified, but also incredibly turned on. Thorne slowly sat down. He looked at Dante. She is difficult, Thorne grunted. She's perfect, Dante whispered, a slow grin spreading across his face. Chapter 19. The Hunter Threat. The elders left an hour later, looking thoroughly defeated by Nia's PowerPoint presentation on discretionary spending. Nia collapsed into her chair. I need a drink. A large one, maybe straight out of the bottle. Dante was staring at her. You bluffed them. You don't have a data release scheduled. Of course I don't, Nia said, rubbing her temples. I barely know how to use the cloud, but they don't know that. Fear is a great motivator, Dante. You of all people should know that. Dante walked over to her. He didn't touch her, but he stood close enough that she could feel his heat. You defended the pack. You defended me. I defended my job, Nia lied, and my Audi. Nia, he said, in the softness in his voice that made her heart skip. Before he could say more, her computer pinged. A red alert. Nia spun her chair around. It's the tracker. I put a trace on the whistleblower blog post, the one who sent the photo of the truck. Did you find the leak? Dante asked, leaning over her shoulder. It's not an internal leak, Nia said, frowning. I analyzed the metadata on the original photo file sent to the blog. They were arrogant. They didn't scrub the GPS tags or the upload history. It's bouncing through 3 proxies, but I caught the origin point. It's a corporate server. She typed a few commands. Origin, Mercer Enterprises. Dante went still. His body went rigid, like stone. Mercer, he hissed. The name sounded like a curse. Who is Mercer? Nia asked. A rival logistics firm? No, Dante said, his voice cold. Mercer isn't a shipping company. They're a private military contractor. They specialize in pest control. Nia felt a chill run down her spine. Pest control? You mean? Hunters, Dante said. Corporate hunters. They don't hunt for sport, they hunt for profit. They capture alphas, extract their blood for pharmaceutical research, and sell the pelts to collectors. Nia looked at the screen. The blog post hadn't been a leak. It had been bait. They wanted to flush you out, Nia realized. They wanted you to panic, to react, to send the wolves out so they could get a clear shot. And I almost did, Dante said grimly. If you hadn't stopped me from sending Kel to beat up that journalist, we would have walked right into an ambush. Chapter 20. The Process Server. The mood in the office shifted instantly from relief to siege mentality. We need to lock down the building, Dante said, reaching for his phone. I'm calling Kel. We go to DEFCON 1. Wait, Nia said. If they're a legitimate corporation, they won't attack with guns in daylight. They'll attack with paper. They'll try to force you into a corner legally. As if on cue, the elevator chimed. The floor was empty except for them. A man stepped out. He was wearing a cheap gray suit and carrying a manila envelope. He looked unremarkable, but Nia saw Dante's nostrils flare. He smells like cold iron, Dante whispered, and gunpowder. The man walked toward the glass doors. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Delivery for Mr. Dante Vesper, the man said through the glass. Dante moved to open the door, his claws threatening to pop. Don't, Nia ordered. Let me. She opened the door. I'm accepting on his behalf. The man looked at her. His eyes were flat, dead. Are you Nia Solis, the fixer? I am. We've heard good things, the man said. He handed her the envelope. Mercer Enterprises sends their regards. He turned and walked back to the elevator, whistling a tune. Nia waited until the doors closed before she opened the envelope. Inside wasn't a lawsuit. It wasn't a subpoena. It was a photograph. a grainy, night vision photograph of Dante. He was mid-shift, half man, half wolf, tearing through the metal door of a shipping container. His face was clearly visible. Clipped to the photo was a note on heavy, expensive stationery. "Mr. Vesper, we have the original. We also have a buyer, unless you are willing to negotiate a trade." "What do they want to trade?" Dante asked, looking at the photo over her shoulder. Nia flipped the note over. There was only one word written on the back. Territory. "They want the docks," Nia said, her voice hollow. "They want your running grounds. If you don't give them the land, they release the photo. They expose the pack to the world." Dante took the photo from her. His claws finally popped, shredding the edge of the paper. "They want a war," he growled, his eyes flashing gold. Nia looked at him, then at the shredded photo. "No," she said, her closer mask sliding into place. "They want a negotiation, and unfortunately for them, they just hired the best negotiator in the city." Chapter 21. The Art of Noise. The conference room table was covered in blueprints, but they weren't for a building, they were for a war. Dante paced the length of the room, his agitation palpable. Every time he turned, the air temperature seemed to spike a degree. "We kill them," Dante said, his voice low and vibrating with a growl he couldn't quite suppress. "We hit the Mercer facility tonight. We burn the servers. We take the photo back." "And then you go to federal prison for arson and murder," Nia said, not looking up from her laptop. "And Mercer releases the backup copy they definitely have in a cloud server in Switzerland." She spun the laptop around to face him. On the screen was the blackmail photo of Dante shifting. "This photo is a problem," Nia admitted. "It's high resolution, it's time-stamped, it's damning." "So we give them the docks?" Kel asked from the corner, looking miserable. "If we lose the running grounds, the pack has nowhere to shift. We'll be caged in the city." "We are not giving them the docks," Nia said sharply. "And we aren't burning anything down. We're going to destroy the evidence by making it irrelevant." Dante stopped pacing. "How do you make a photo of a werewolf irrelevant?" "We flood the zone," Nia said, a wicked smile curling her lips. "Mercer is betting on the fact that this image is shocking, unique. But we live in the age of AI, Dante. If one photo exists, it's truth. If 10,000 photos exist, it's noise." She tapped a key. The screen changed. It showed Dante shifting, but this time he was on the moon. She tapped again. Dante shifting in a clown suit. Dante shifting into a giant toaster. Dante riding a unicorn while howling. Kel snorted, trying to hold back a laugh. Dante looked horrified. "Is that me?" "It's a deepfake," Nia explained. "I've hired a bot farm in Eastern Europe. As we speak, the internet is being flooded with leaked images of you turning into everything from a dragon to a blender. We're going to turn the real photo into just another meme. We're going to claim it's part of a guerrilla marketing campaign for a blockbuster fantasy movie that Vesper is the official shipping partner for." Dante stared at the screen, where a digital version of himself was currently fighting Godzilla. "You're going to turn me into a joke," he said slowly. "I'm going to turn you into a viral sensation," Nia corrected. "And while the world is laughing at the bad CGI, we invite Mercer to a gala at the docks, a preservation of heritage gala. We invite the mayor, the governor, the press. We announce that the docks are being designated a protected wildlife sanctuary." "A sanctuary?" Dante blinked. "If it's a sanctuary, Mercer can't buy it. They can't seize it, and they can't build on it. We lock them out with red tape, and we humiliate them with memes." Nia stood up, walking over to Dante. She reached up and fixed his tie, which was crooked from his pacing. "You hired a fixer, Dante. Let me fix it. You just have to do one thing." Dante looked down at her, his hazel eyes swirling with that molten gold. "What?" "You have to wear a tuxedo, and you have to smile. Can you manage that, or do I need to put it on the spreadsheet?" Chapter 22. The Fitting. "I hate this," Dante growled. "Stop moving," Nia commanded. "You're ruining the line of the trousers." They were in Dante's penthouse dressing room, a space larger than Nia's old apartment. A terrified tailor had fled 10 minutes ago after Dante had growled at a measuring tape, leaving Nia to finish the fitting herself. She was currently on her knees, pinning the hem of his trousers. It was a dangerous position. Dante's legs were like tree trunks, solid, immovable muscle. The heat radiating off him was making Nia sweat in her blazer. "It's too tight," Dante complained, shifting his weight. "I feel bound. If I have to move fast, I'll rip the seams." "Then don't move fast," Nia said, looking up. "Walk slowly. Use your words. You're a CEO tonight, not a predator." She stood up, smoothing the lapels of his midnight blue tuxedo jacket. It was custom-made, platinum cufflinks glinting under the lights. No silver, as per the spreadsheet. He looked devastating. It wasn't fair, really. A man shouldn't be allowed to be this rich, this dangerous, and this good-looking all at once. It messed with the actuarial tables of fairness. Dante caught her staring. The irritation in his face melted away, replaced by a sudden, intense focus. He took a step closer, backing her against the mirror. "You smell like vanilla again," he murmured, leaning down. He inhaled deeply near her neck, his nose grazing her skin. "And adrenaline. Are you scared, Nia?" "I'm stressed," Nia corrected, her voice breathless. "There's a difference, and you're invading my personal space." "I don't believe in personal space," Dante whispered. His hands settled on her waist. They were heavy, warm, and possessive. "Not with you. When you're close, the noise stops. The wolf settles." Nia's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. This was the danger zone. Not the blackmail, not the hunters, this. The way he looked at her like she was the only water in a desert. "We have a meeting with the caterers," she said, her voice shaky. "And I need to check on the bot farm." Dante didn't let go. He leaned closer, his lips brushing the shell of her ear. "Forget the caterers. Stay here. Let me show you why I'm worth the trouble." For a second, one terrifying, intoxicating second, Nia wanted to say yes. She wanted to cancel the gala, lock the doors, and let the alpha do whatever he wanted. But she was Nia Solace. She had a job to do, and she still didn't have her Audi. She placed her hands on his chest and pushed. It was like pushing a mountain, but he let her move him. "Focus, Dante," she said, slipping out of his hold. "Save the intensity for Mercer. If you look at the bad guys like that, they'll sign the surrender papers just to get away from you." Chapter 23. The Invitation. Nia didn't mail the invitation to Mercer Enterprises. She delivered it. The Mercer headquarters was a stark, brutalist building on the outskirts of the industrial district. It screamed, "We torture people for money." Nia walked into the lobby, her heels clicking loudly on the polished concrete. She approached the front desk, where a security guard with dead eyes watched her. "Delivery for Director Graves," Nia said cheerfully, holding up a heavy, cream-colored envelope embossed with gold leaf. "Do you have an appointment?" the guard grunted. "I have a PR crisis in an envelope," Nia smiled. "Tell him it's from Dante Vesper. Tell him we have a counteroffer." 5 minutes later, she was escorted to a top-floor office. Director Graves was a man who looked like he had been cured in vinegar. He was thin, pale, and wore a suit that cost more than Nia's life insurance policy. He didn't stand up when she entered. "Ms. Solace," Graves said, his voice dry. "I expected Mr. Vesper. Does the Alpha hide behind his staff now?" "Mr. Vesper is busy picking out hors d'oeuvres," Nia said, dropping the envelope onto his desk. "We're throwing a party, Saturday night, the Vesper Docks. We'd love for you to come." Graves opened the envelope. He read the invitation. Then he laughed, a cold, rasping sound. "A heritage gala? You think a party will stop us? We have the photo, Ms. Solace. We have the leverage. Saturday is the deadline. If we don't have the deed to the docks, the world sees the monster." "Oh, the photo," Nia said, waving a hand dismissively. "You mean the viral marketing campaign? Have you checked Twitter today, Director? Or Reddit? #VesperWolf is trending. People love the CGI. They think it's for a new movie." Graves frowned. He tapped his keyboard. His eyes widened as he saw the flood of images. Dante as a wolf on a surfboard, Dante as a wolf eating pizza. The real photo was buried under mountains of absurdity. This is childish, Graves spat. It's effective, Nia countered, leaning forward, her hands on his desk. We've muddied the water. Your blackmail is now a meme, but the offer stands. Come to the gala. See the docs. We're announcing a new initiative. If you miss it, you'll miss the chance to negotiate for alternative assets. Graves studied her. He looked at her neck, her pulse. He was a hunter. He knew how to spot fear. Nia didn't give him any. She gave him boredom. Fine, Graves said, tossing the invite back. We'll attend. But if this is a trap, Miss Solace, remember, we hunt wolves, but we have no qualms about hurting the sheep that follow them. Nia smiled, sharp and cold. I'm not a sheep, Director. I'm the shepherd. See you on Saturday. Chapter 24. The Gala. The Vesper docks had been transformed. What was usually a gritty, industrial loading zone was now draped in velvet and silk. String lights hung from the massive cranes. A live orchestra played on a platform built over a shipping container. It was the most expensive distraction in corporate history. Nia stood by the entrance, clutching her tablet like a shield. She wore a dress she couldn't really afford, emerald green, backless, and dangerous. It was a power move. This collar itches, a voice grumbled beside her. Kel was standing there, stuffed into a tuxedo size XXXXXL. He looked like a bouncer at a vampire wedding. Stop scratching, Kel, Nia whispered. You're the head of security, not a golden retriever. Where is the alpha? He's inside, greeting the mayor. He looks calm. It's weirding me out. Nia looked toward the center of the room. Dante was there. He looked magnificent. The midnight blue tux fit him perfectly. He was holding a glass of sparkling water, staying sober for the fight ahead, and charming the city zoning commissioner. But as she watched, he stopped. He turned. Across the crowded room, his eyes locked onto hers. The gold flash was visible even from this distance. He excused himself from the mayor and started walking toward her. The crowd parted instinctively, sensing the predator in their midst. He stopped in front of her. He didn't say a word. He just looked at her dress, then at her face. Green, he said finally. It matches the money we're about to save, Nia quipped, though her breath caught in her throat. You look... Dante struggled for the word. He leaned in close. You look like you own the place. And me. I'm working on the deed, Nia whispered. Graves is here, 3 o'clock, by the shrimp tower. Dante's body went rigid. The playful charm vanished. The alpha returned. I smell him, Dante growled softly. Gun oil. And arrogance. Stick to the plan, Nia reminded him, placing a hand on his arm. The moon was still high and bright above the docks, enough to drive him mad 2 nights ago, but with her touching him, the rage evaporated. No growling, no shifting. Tonight, we aren't wolves. We're politicians. Dante took a deep breath, inhaling her scent, anchoring himself to her calm. He covered her hand with his. After this, he said, his voice dropping to that dangerous, vibrating register. After they are gone, you and I are having a very different conversation about boundaries. Promise? Nia teased, her heart racing. Threat, Dante promised. Now, let's go catch a hunter. Chapter 25. The Trap. Director Graves didn't come alone. He brought 4 associates, men who stood too still and looked at the crowd like they were selecting targets. Nia led Dante over to them. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Director Graves, Dante said, extending a hand. His grip was controlled, but Nia saw the tendons in his wrist jump. Mr. Vesper, Graves replied, ignoring the hand. Nice party. Shame it's going to be your last as a free man. I think you'll find our new announcement quite interesting, Nia interjected. She signaled the DJ. The music stopped. Nia stepped up to the microphone. The spotlight hit her, blindingly bright. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Nia's voice boomed over the speakers. Thank you for joining us at the Vesper Docks. Tonight, we aren't just celebrating a successful quarter, we are celebrating a legacy. She gestured to the massive screen behind her. I am proud to announce that as of this afternoon, Vesper Logistics has donated this entire waterfront property to the City Trust. A gasp went through the crowd. Dante looked at Nia, his eyes widening. He hadn't known this part of the plan. This land is now the Vesper Coastal Heritage Preserve, a protected historical site, Nia continued. It cannot be sold. It cannot be developed. And most importantly, she clicked a button. The screen changed to show a live feed of the mayor signing a document. It is now under the direct protection of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, with Vesper Logistics retaining exclusive nighttime stewardship for conservation maintenance. Any unauthorized personnel found trespassing, say, armed private contractors, will be facing federal felony charges. Not from us, from the United States government. Nia looked down at Graves. The director's face had gone the color of ash. The territory he wanted was gone. It wasn't Dante's to give anymore. It was the city's. The pack could still run there. It was a sanctuary, but Mercer couldn't buy it. Their leverage was worthless. Graves lunged forward, his composure breaking. You bitch! You can't— Kel was there instantly. He didn't shift. He didn't punch. He just stepped in front of Graves, a wall of smiling muscle. Problem, sir? Kel asked politely. Or would you like to try the crab cakes? Dante stepped up beside Nia. He took the microphone. Thank you, Nia, he said, his voice commanding the room. He looked at Graves, his eyes flashing gold for just a second, a warning only the hunter could see. I win. Please, Dante said to the crowd, enjoy the night. Our legacy is safe. Graves turned and stormed out, his team trailing behind him. Nia stepped off the stage, her legs shaking. She had just given away $1 billion in real estate to save a pack of werewolves. Dante grabbed her arm, pulling her into the shadows of a shipping container. You gave away my docks, he whispered. He sounded furious, or maybe amazed. I saved your running grounds, Nia corrected, looking up at him defiantly. It's a sanctuary, Dante. You can run, you just can't sell it. I removed the asset from the board. Dante stared at her. Then he laughed. A real, joyous, barking laugh. He picked her up, lifted her right off the ground like she weighed nothing, and spun her around. You are terrifying, he said, burying his face in her neck. You are absolutely terrifying. And you are mine. Nia held on to his broad shoulders, feeling the heat of him, the power of him. Put me down, Alpha, she whispered, though she didn't let go. We have guests. Let them wait, Dante growled against her skin. I think I need to fetch you a drink. Or a crown. Chapter 26. The Surrender. The drive back to the penthouse was silent, but it wasn't the silence of awkwardness. It was the heavy, charged silence of a storm about to break. Dante drove the company SUV with one hand on the wheel, his other hand resting on Nia's thigh, his thumb tracing slow, possessive circles against the silk of her green dress. Nia stared out the window, watching the city blur by. The adrenaline of the gala was fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion and a terrifying clarity. She had saved the pack. She had humiliated a corporate superpower, and she had done it all for the man sitting next to her. When they pulled into the private garage, Dante didn't wait for her to open her door. He was there instantly, pulling her out. He didn't set her down. He carried her to the elevator, her heels dangling, his arms locked around her like steel bands. Dante, I can walk, Nia whispered, though she didn't struggle. She rested her head against his shoulder, inhaling the scent of cedar and rain that was uniquely him. I know you can, he rumbled against her hair. But tonight, you don't have to. The elevator ride to the 41st floor felt like it took a century. The moment the door slid open, Dante carried her into the living room and kicked the door shut behind him. He set her down, but he didn't step back. He crowded her against the wall, his hands framing her face, his hazel eyes already darkening with the wolf's influence as they searched hers. You saved us, he said, his voice rough with emotion. You saved my home, My people. Why? Because I'm good at my job, Nia deflected, trying to keep her fixer mask in place. Don't, Dante warned, stepping closer until his chest brushed hers. Don't give me the corporate line, Nia. Why? Nia looked up at him. The mask crumbled. Because I couldn't let them hurt you, she admitted, her voice trembling. Because the thought of you in a cage, it broke me. Dante let out a breath that sounded like a growl. I've been waiting, he whispered. I've been waiting for you to see me. Not the CEO, not the monster. Me. He kissed her. It wasn't a gentle, tentative first kiss. It was acclaiming. It was hot, desperate, and overwhelming. Nia gasped, her hands tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. He tasted like champagne and danger. I don't need a tame dog, Dante, she murmured against his lips. I need the wolf. Something inside Dante snapped. He lifted her again, walking blindly toward the bedroom. The air in the room spiked in temperature, his skin burning against hers like a fever that had finally broken. He laid her on the bed, stripping off his tuxedo jacket and tossing it aside. When he looked at her, his eyes were fully gold. I am yours, he vowed, his voice a low, vibrating purr that resonated in her chest. Body, blood, and bone. I am yours. Nia reached up, pulling him down to her. For the first time in her life, she surrendered control. She stopped analyzing. She stopped calculating. She just felt. And as the alpha worshipped her, proving that she was the only thing in the world he bowed to, Nia realized she wasn't just safe. She was home. Chapter 27. The Black Beast. Nia woke up the next morning feeling like she had been hit by a truck, but in a good way. The sun was streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She stretched, her muscles protesting, and reached out for Dante. The other side of the bed was empty. A note was on the pillow. Garage. Wear comfortable shoes. Nia smiled, rolling out of bed. She showered, threw on jeans and a sweater, a rare casual look for a Sunday, and took the elevator down to the private garage. Dante was standing there, leaning against a concrete pillar. He was wearing jeans and a black t-shirt, looking impossibly fresh for a man who had barely slept. But Nia didn't look at him. She looked at what was behind him. Sitting in the center of the garage, gleaming under the fluorescent lights, was a car. It was black. Not just black, it was a deep, velvet obsidian that seemed to absorb the light. The curves were aggressive. The grille looked like it wanted to eat the road. It was an Audi RS7. Nia stopped walking, her breath hitched. You didn't, she whispered. Dante pushed off the pillar, dangling a key fob from his finger. You saved the company, Nia. You saved the pack. Triple salary wasn't enough. Nia walked toward the car slowly, as if afraid it might vanish. She ran a hand over the hood. It was cold, sleek, and perfect. She looked inside. Custom leather interior, red stitching. It's fast, Dante warned, stepping up behind her. 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It's a predator, just like me. Nia turned around, snatching the keys from his hand. Her grin was so wide it actually hurt her cheeks. It's beautiful, she said. Does it have a name? That's up to you, Dante said, crossing his arms. But considering how much it cost, I hope you treat it better than you treat my furniture. Nia laughed, unlocking the door. The sound of the engine roaring to life was music. Better than Mozart. Better than the lamentations of her enemies. Get in, Alpha, she commanded, revving the engine. I'm driving. Dante hesitated, looking at the passenger seat with deep suspicion. You're a reckless driver in a sedan, Nia. In this, you're a missile. Get in, or I'm leaving you here, she warned. Dante sighed, opening the passenger door. If I die, I'm haunting you. If you die, Nia said, putting the car in gear, I'm selling your watch to pay for the gas. They shot out of the garage, the engine growling, heading toward the open highway. Nia Solis had her dream job, her dream man, and finally, her dream car. Chapter 28. Cold-blooded Judgment. A week later, the domestic bliss hit a snag. The snag was 18 inches long, covered in scales, and hated everyone. Scales, Nia's fat, bearded dragon, was not adjusting well to the penthouse. He spent his days glaring at the skyline and hissing at the cleaning crew. Dante was determined to win him over. "It's a lizard, Nia," Dante said, holding a container of premium mealworms. "I run a pack of wolves. I can handle an 18-inch cold-blooded grump." "He's not just a grump," Nia warned from the kitchen, where she was drinking wine and watching the disaster unfold. "He's a critic." Dante approached the terrarium. He opened the lid. "Hey, buddy," Dante cooed, using a voice Nia had never heard before, a soft, gentle tone usually reserved for injured pups. "Look what I have. Juicy worms." Scales opened one eye. He looked at the worm. He looked at Dante. Then, slowly, deliberately, he turned his head away and closed his eyes. "He rejected me," Dante said, sounding genuinely hurt. "I bought the organic worms, the expensive ones." "He senses your desperation," Nia laughed. "It's pathetic." Dante narrowed his eyes. "I am the alpha. I dominate nature." He reached his hand into the tank, resting it on the warm sand. Suddenly, Scales moved. He scurried over to Dante's hand. Dante beamed. "See, he likes me. He's coming to—" Scales climbed onto Dante's hand, sprawled out on his warm palm, and closed his eyes. Dante froze. He's sitting on me." "He's not sitting on you," Nia explained, walking over. "He's basking. You run at 102 degrees, Dante. You aren't his friend. You're a biological heat rock." Dante looked down at the lizard, who looked blissfully comfortable siphoning off the alpha's body heat. "I'm being used," Dante muttered. "I'm a glorified radiator." "Welcome to the relationship," Nia teased, kissing his cheek. "Now don't move. If you wake him up, he bites." Dante sighed, sitting down on the floor near the tank, his hand still inside, holding the sleeping lizard. The most powerful predator in the city, trapped by a creature the size of a banana. "I hate this family," Dante grumbled, but he didn't move a muscle for an hour. Chapter 29. The Ghost of Apartments Past. 2 weeks after getting the car, Nia was leaving the Vesper building, heading toward her shiny black Audi, when she heard a voice that made her skin crawl. "Nia! Hey, girl! Wait up!" She turned. It was Tasha. Her old roommate looked frazzled. She was wearing a coat that looked suspiciously like one Nia had donated to Goodwill 3 years ago. "Tasha," Nia said, her voice cool and professional. "What are you doing here?" Tasha jogged over, eyeing the Vesper building and the car keys in Nia's hand. "I've been trying to call you. You changed your number. Look, the apartment, it's not the same without you. The vibe is off, and the landlord is being a total fascist about the rent." "You mean he expects you to pay it?" Nia asked dryly. "It's barely late." Tasha waved a hand. "Anyway, I saw the news about the Heritage Preserve. It's all over social media, and I saw your name on the press release. You're VP now? That's huge. I was thinking, maybe you need an assistant? Or a spiritual consultant for the office?" Nia looked at Tasha. She remembered the ruined blazer, the stolen food, the constant gaslighting. The old Nia would have felt guilty. She would have written a check. She would have apologized for succeeding, but Nia Solis was the mate of an alpha now. She ran a corporation. She had stared down corporate hunters. Tasha was just noise. "I don't need a spiritual consultant, Tasha," Nia said calmly. "And we aren't hiring." "Come on, Nia. We're friends. I let you live with me for 2 years." "I paid 80% of the rent," Nia corrected, "and you ruined my Armani blazer." She unlocked the Audi. The lights flashed, reflecting off the black paint. "I'm not the same person who lived in that 4th-floor walk-up," Nia said, opening the door. "I grew up. You should try it." "You think you're better than me just because you have money now?" Tasha sneered, her love and light mask slipping. Nia paused. She looked at Tasha, really looked at her. "No," Nia said softly. "I think I'm better because I finally learned to value my own time. Goodbye, Tasha." She got in the car and slammed the door. She didn't look back as she peeled out of the lot. As she merged onto the highway, hearing the engine purr, she felt the last tether to her old small life snap. She was free. Chapter 30. The Command. 3 months later, life at the penthouse had settled into a rhythm. A chaotic, high-stakes, werewolf-filled rhythm, but a rhythm nonetheless. It was a rainy Sunday. Nia was curled up on the sofa, reading a book. Scales was asleep on his heat rock. Dante was currently refusing to perform basking duties. Dante walked in from the kitchen. He was shirtless, wearing sweatpants, and looked ridiculously good. He was holding a protein shake. He stopped in front of the TV, blocking Nia's view. "We need to discuss the quarterly budget," he said seriously. "The meat expenses are down, but the dry cleaning bills are up. Apparently, the pack likes silk." Nia sighed, trying to look around his massive frame. "Dante, move! You're made of muscle and opacity. I'm watching Real Housewives." "I'm the alpha," Dante said, crossing his arms. "I don't move for Bravo TV." Nia rolled her eyes. She was comfortable. She was warm. And her coffee cup on the coffee table was empty. She looked at Dante. A mischievous thought crossed her mind. She remembered that night at the bar, the night he had pinned her, the night he had commanded her. She wondered. "Dante," she said, her voice casual. He looked at her. "Yes?" "Fetch my latte. It's in the kitchen." Dante opened his mouth to argue. He wanted to say, "Get it yourself." He wanted to say, "I am a wolf king." But the bond, the mating bond that tied his soul to hers, reacted before his brain did. The command from his mate bypassed his ego and hit his instincts like a sledgehammer. Mate wants. Alpha provides. Dante's knees buckled slightly. He turned around, walked into the kitchen, picked up the latte she had left on the counter, and walked back. He handed it to her. Nia took it, sipping it slowly, hiding her grin behind the rim of the mug. Dante stood there, blinking. He looked at his hand. He looked at the kitchen. He looked at her. The realization hit him. His eyes widened in horror. He stammered. "Did I just—" Nia lowered the mug. Her smile was wicked, triumphant, and full of love. "Good boy," she whispered. Dante groaned, burying his face in his hands as he realized his life of dominance was officially over. "I hate you," he mumbled, sitting on the floor by her feet and resting his head on her knee. "No, you don't," Nia said, running her fingers through his dark hair. "No," Dante admitted, closing his eyes and leaning into her touch. "I really don't." He fetched. The end.